In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
It got up to like $68,000. My heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They gave me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
Hoorah! Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.
From the Vikings of Norway to my home down south to Washington, D.C., I've been around. I've seen it all, and I've come out on top. You better beware, for all you know, the bell tolls for you. Enter the bell tower or watch your step.
Good evening. This is Lou Bell, they like to call me. Thus, for whom the bell tolls. We're tolling for some pretty interesting people tonight. I have got some great stories for you guys, and some great bits from our friends, and I see them in the chat room. I know I saw Beaker. There he is. So we got a little bit of the Book of Beaker, and we have a parody from Dexter, and we're going to talk a little bit about the cult of Trump. And I've got to say that I was a non-believer in the cult of Trump. I was a holdout. And I hope that you guys aren't taking this the wrong way, because you're freaking out in the chat room right now if you are. I didn't want to believe that it was a cult, or that a cult was developing, or that something crazy was going on. And as of this evening, I might think that there's even something crazier going on. But the whole thing seems like a cult. It's a Trump cult. And I don't really know what to think about it, except that it's become a religion. Thus, the Book of Beaker, and thus the reading from the Book of Beaker for this evening. And I'm really not going to waste any time, because I know some people that are really waiting to hear this. So I am going to play our reading from the Book of Beaker this evening, because it's going to set up our first segment. Here we go.
A reading from the Book of Beaker. First Conservatives, chapters 9, verses 4 through 12. Trump is vacant. Trump is unkind. He knows not envy, but proclaimeth every boast, for his wealth is as vast as the seas. The Trump is rude, and his ego knoweth no bounds. The Trump delights in himself, for stupidity's sake. and his followers rejoice in his every statement, for on the short bus do they ride. Irony, it is lost on those who sniff at his most holy of crotches. For positions he changes as quickly as the monkey slingeth poo. The Trump seldom fails, though in so doing he commits bankruptcy and passes on yon burden to the taxpayer. And in this too his followers rejoice. For their intellect is not unlike that of a pot of boiled frogs. But where there are Mexicans, they will cease. For in his greatness a wall shall spring forth from the earth, built and funded by those he casts out from Eden. And in their homeland the unclean shall toil in fine silks, laboring to create a clothing line for his greatness. Amen. This has been a reading from the Book of Beaker.
For a minute there, I thought you guys couldn't hear because I lost my connection to the radio feed on this end, so I couldn't hear it playing. I thought we were going to have to do that again, but then I saw you quoting the Book of Beaker in the chat room. I think the slingeth poo might have been the favorite comment there, Beaker, so note that for future readings. But it really is kind of funny. Beaker came up with this bit and just really fit into what we were doing on the cult of Trump, because if you've been watching the reaction, and I'll buy that all of them are even really Trump supporters, they're not Hillary supporters trying to make sure that Trump wins the nomination because they think, and I don't think so, but they think that he could beat Hillary, and I think they're probably mistaken there. I think even Trump could beat Hillary, but I don't think that's the point. The point is that I think a lot of them are really Hillary supporters or whatnot, but they just don't really seem to have any kind of logical. A lot of them don't have logical ties. They don't have logical arguments, for sure. If you try to dispute anything they're saying with facts, forget it. And God forbid you bring up my favorite, which is really a huge issue for me, being a Lockean, of course it is, which is property rights and eminent domain. And that disqualifies you, in my mind, from being a conservative at all. I don't think anything can disqualify you from running for any office. That is very un-American, and we can't do that. However, I think that as voters, we do and should look at each other and ourselves and say, is this person really conservative? And if they are not, then are we going to vote for them? And someone, Dexter, the MSN, wants Trump to win. Well, maybe. They are definitely favorites of Hillary, and like I said, they really believe that, he's the guy that she could beat. Or, we all know that it was well reported and not denied by Trump that he got a phone call from Bill Clinton. That was leaked by the Hillary campaign, interestingly enough, early on. But don't mention that to a Trump supporter because, again, you get a very over-the-top reaction. There's some guys I like, there's some guys I don't. But if you have something to say about any of them, Trump included, if he's your guy and you support him, typically I'm going to respect that. I will tell you that Trump is not, in my mind, conservative because of the eminent domain thing. He not only was okay with it as a businessman, but he stated pretty clearly he would be okay with it as a president. That's not okay with me, and I don't apologize for that. I'm actually very proud of it. So I'm not going to apologize to someone who supports Trump for not supporting his candidate because I don't believe that his values align with mine. No one should have to apologize for that. And no one should have to be called, especially with a field of 15 candidates. we have a lot of time to go and a lot of people to choose from, and I've seen a lot of you really good conservatives be called things like liberal trolls, and I know very well that you're not. Shout out in the chat room if you've been called a liberal troll this week, and because you don't like Trump. I have. The people that I see Slick, I know you were called a liberal troll at least once this week. And I don't know about Dexter, but I do believe that, there's Dr. A. He's probably never been called a liberal troll. Maybe a conservative troll, but not a liberal troll. I believe that Beaker was called a liberal troll this week. Bunny was called one several times. She's not in the chat room. But, you know, it's just a really interesting thing that all of a sudden you go to be go to being a liberal troll. And we've seen that, you know, Rita Linsky, look at what we call Alinsky for Twitter. You can see it play out every day. And it's really interesting to me that, you know, one of their tactics is to, you know, escalate the argument, point out to the, you know, use what you are, accuse them of being what you really are. So when someone pretending to be a conservative for Trump calls me a liberal troll, I tend to think, that's probably a Democrat behind that account. Maybe, maybe not. You know, it's a Twitter phenomena, and it's only Twitter. But I think we're getting at least a good idea of what some campaigns are trying to do with the Republican nomination. And I think we've probably seen this evolving on Twitter over the last couple of election cycles, if you think about it. So the cult of Trump is alive and well on Twitter. I don't know where else the cult of Trump might live. As a matter of fact, I haven't really seen it. I haven't run into anyone in person who supports Trump. And I was at a birthday party in August with a lot of people that were really loving Trump at that point. None of them in real life were nasty like that. So again, I challenge you to stop and think about where these people are coming from. Who are they? Nobody knows who's behind a Twitter account, really. I mean, it's just a thing. It's just an account. It's just an @ handle. We all know people that have 100, maybe 10 easily different stock accounts. So who are these people that are saying they're for Trump? Some of the statements that I've seen them make, I actually saved one in a screenshot. Let me pull that up. Just really are so ridiculous that you think this person can't be real. I think the most popular assumption has been that they're crazy, but I refuse to believe that there are that many super crazy people. Actually, one Trump supporter said today that Trump has never told a lie. One of our friends replied to him with, well, Ivana might disagree with you. And my response to that was, and Marla might disagree with you as well. That is a statement that's really actually pretty scary. You stop and think about it. Trump has never told a lie. If you believe that, you're crazy. There's not a person on earth that has never told a lie. It's even been proven that though it was said about George Washington, it wasn't true. Even of our founding father. So, you know, what is going on here? This is truly crazy. This is either not a real person, which we could dig into and prove that it's some liberal sock trying to just stir up trouble, or this thing has really gotten out of hand. And from what I've seen, the good news is it hasn't gotten out of hand in real life. It's only gotten out of hand on Twitter. And that's one reason that when Dr. A is going to call in a few minutes, I think you're due in about 5, and I know you're in the chat room because I've seen you. So he's going to call in a few minutes, and we're going to promise not going to spend any more time on Trump. We're going to spend the rest of the time on the Russian airliner that crashed in Egypt. But Dr. A sometimes doesn't understand what I mean when it's not that I have a problem with Trump. It's the cult of personality that's built up around him is a little bit scary. Yes, it bothers me. I'm not going to apologize for that. I think that we should be bothered anytime a leader begins to emerge and there's that much cult of personality building up around them. I don't think that that's a good thing. It's not good for our country. It's not what we're meant to be. And even, again, back to George Washington, he fought that. And he kind of, they wanted him to stay in office forever, and he wouldn't. So I think we have to think about the real statesman and who would really allow that. And it seems to be feeding him, and he seems to be loving it. But I've got to wonder how much of it he even knows is going on. So I'm not holding this against the candidate. I don't think it's the candidate's fault, but I do think the cult of personality that's grown up around him is kind of a scary thing. And does it make me not support him? Yeah, probably. I probably wouldn't support him either anyway, because, I just don't believe he's conservative. But if there was that chance, that outside chance that I was going to support him as a candidate, I probably wouldn't because of that cult of personality. So the campaign needs to stop and think about that for a minute. Yeah, it feels really good. It's feeding his ego. He's probably loving it. But is it good for his campaign in the long run? Probably not. I'd have to say no. I'd have to say it's probably a death knell for his campaign in general, and it's why I say he won't last. Shooting stars burn out. And I believe that's what's going to happen to him. It's been true throughout history, and it just happens. And, there's no rhyme or reason to it sometimes. This time I think there might be a little bit of rhyme or reason to it. It's just a little bit too much, and I think it might eat itself alive because it's turned into such a monster. That's the cult of Trump. That's the last word you'll ever hear on this show about Trump, because he gets plenty of media time and we don't need to give him any more. He gets way more impressions a day than we could ever give him. So, he doesn't need us. We are going to cut to a break real quick, and then we're going to come back with Dr. Renee Arrington and talk about this aircraft carrier, this airliner that crashed in Egypt. It was a Russian airliner, and there's been lots of mystery around it. Governments aren't necessarily agreeing on what happened. There was a satellite flash. Dr. Arrington happens to know a lot about satellite imagery and infrared and definitely air flight. There was another rumor that we'll get into that a lot of people shot down from the beginning, but it was more propaganda that came out. So there's a lot to talk about this Russian thing or the Russian airline crash that people haven't necessarily put together, and we're going to put it together for you. But as we go into break, we are going to hear the parody by Dexter that you guys are going to have to give me a minute on, because it looks like I didn't load it to my deck. I did load it to my deck, but it got pushed out by something. So Dexter, of course, we're going to have a problem the first week that we tried to do this. But I've got that right here. So I'm going to play this for you guys. And we're going to cut to a break right after. And we'll be right back.
He announces run and gathers his flock. They act like other ones just talk. We look at his words and find little, but he excites. It's drum verbal. They tell you all about his success. His plans are vague so they say less. They think that his chutzpah will trump all, so they attack its drum burble. Every insult they think they'll say, they will block their own friends without regret. If you are asking, you are wrong. Their fight for Don goes on and on, but they think that he's right for it all, so they strike its trumpet ball, its trumpet ball.
K98Talk.com, a leader in Internet radio. So grab your seatbelts and take the ride of your life on K98Talk.com.
This is JD.
And this is Stacy.
Join us Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, for Game On. Remember,
lock up the children and the old folks.
Game On, the home of libertative conservatism,
where no one is safe and no one is spared. Not even the hosts.
Oh, that was supposed to be a spin cycle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We love you anyway. Right round, baby.
Self-monitoring
right
Ebola radio strikes again.
Anyway.
Anybody see the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? For God's sake, I need an antidote. Just do your rant. Let's pop out of the segment.
Has to do with
Find us on Twitter at JD and Stacy.
All right. Okay, let's start over. So that was dead air, and you listen to my show, you're probably accustomed to it because I'm always forgetting to hit that mute button that creates the echo in the beginning of the show. So sorry about that, you guys. We have Dr. Arrington here. He was teasing Stacy as we were coming in and we were muted about Donald Trump, but we're not going to do that again. We do a show together on Sunday, but this is the first time that we've ever gotten together to talk about your expertise in aviation and a lot of other things. So your background, you started your young adult life as a naval aviator. That was really your first profession. And you were a naval aviator for many years. You flew you were the aerostat, expert of the week for when the aerostat balloon or blimp or whatever you guys call it broke loose, and you were on CNN and Fox News, and so you have a lot of background with aviation and satellite imagery and things like that, right? So you understand kind of what's going on, or you'd be able to answer some questions for us tonight about what's going on with the Russian airliner that was still a bit mysterious. We've got two different stories going on, but there's still a lot of mystery behind what happened.
Yeah, my squadron mates from the Navy, I was an attack pilot in the Navy for 20 years and flew all 40 different aircraft carriers, many different airplanes in the Navy. And when they saw me on Fox News and CNN, they reached out to me on all the different social media outlets to tell me that CNN and Fox now have a dedicated blimp expert. And I expect nothing less from a semi-arrogant Captain Naval aviators.
Yeah, really. Somebody's got to be the blimp expert, though, Doc, so it might as well be you. But so it's been 6 days. The airliner was taking off from Sharm el-Sheikh. Can you say it better than I can? And that is an Egyptian resort town. So there's lots of tourism there in that area, and it's really one of the few real touristy areas of Egypt. It's a lot of where a lot of Egypt's tourism economy is, correct? Right?
That's correct. And you got to realize, and I taught this to my students at the universities, that whenever anybody makes any kind of statement, whether it's an official statement from a government entity or an individual, a troll on Twitter, you got to consider the political context or the historical context from which the perspective that they adopt based on the political context. Why would they say that? Why would Egypt immediately come out and say that Flight 9268 was not brought down by terrorism? You mentioned it just a second ago. They have a booming tourist industry, and they don't want to impact that. Well, the truth is going to come out like it always does. Well, why would Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and Susan Rice say that it was a YouTube video that caused a spontaneous reaction to the stuff that happened in Benghazi? What's the historical context? What's the political context? He was running for re-election, and he'd already said that they had Al-Qaeda on the run, and nothing was further from the truth. So first thing you got to realize when you're listening to people talk, why did they say that? Is there a reason, the motivation behind why they would tell you something that wasn't true? And it happens all the time. And George Washington did tell lies.
And
not very many, but
right, yeah, not very many, but but he did, and it's known that he did, and some of them were in wartime and they needed to be told, but that's a whole other story. So it's important to understand the way that, in this country, the way that we investigate airline accidents, and you guys have all seen the rebuilding planes on television and the debris, talking about the debris field and reconstructing an accident from the ground on the debris field back up and building a plane back up in a hangar to figure out what happened to it. But we have the Egyptian government and Russia investigating this accident, and that's a completely different transparency game. It's a different political game. It's a different game altogether, is it not?
It is, and they both have different motivations to come up with a reason. There's many reasons that an airplane can come out of the sky. And I was trained by the NTSB and the FAA to conduct aircraft accident investigations when I was an interceptor pilot for U.S. Customs. But let's just put it this way, Lynch. airplanes don't just fall out of the sky because of structural failure, explosive decompression. They don't just break up in midair. It has happened. There was Aloha Airlines at the top, and the roof came off, but it still was able to fly and land. A lot of people have been saying that this airplane was brought down by a surface-to-air missile, heat-seeking missile, like a Stinger. They call them man pads these days.
It was way too high for that.
Well, yeah, it was up at 31,000 feet. The man pads don't go that high. They don't go any more than 15, 16. If you extend that to 20, so that's not true. A lot of people say
I have
maybe
a friend that would call.
UAV.
Yeah, I have a friend that would call that a smoke screen.
Call her what?
A smoke screen. It's just a smoke screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, smoke screen for the tourism industry. UAV. Some people have speculated. By the way, we're not supposed to speculate on the cause of accidents, but everybody does it. We're doing it now. What we try to do in aircraft accident investigation, you realize that in natural science, one variable can cause a result. If I take water and I heat it to 212 degrees, it boils every time. Mm-hmm. So one cause can have a result. In complex human relations, there's never just one variable that causes the end result. There's 5, 6, 8. So what we try to look for is the most probable cause. It didn't hit a drone. That was too high for the drones. No structural failure. Some people mentioned purposeful crew member bringing it down.
Right.
That's what happened with the German airliner. That actually happened. In fact, I talked about that when it occurred. The guy actually brought it down.
Right.
That didn't happen here. It didn't hit a meteorite. A lot of people saying the Airbus 321s, which is the Stretch 320, they are fly-by-wire. It could have been a computer failure that gave some sort of abrupt command to the airplane and made it break apart and have explosive decompression, have the tail fall off. I highly that's doubtful. It wasn't a meteorite. What I am going to tell you right now, more than likely, since the space-based infrared radar system that we have up in space picked up this heat plume, they didn't pick up 3, they picked up 2. If they picked up 3, that would indicate that we probably had a launch of a surface-to-air missile from the ground. That's the first heat plume. Then it explodes by impacting the airplane. The proximity fusing would blow up the airplane. That's the second heat plume, and then it would impact the ground, and that'd be the third heat plume. That didn't happen. The SBIRS infrared system that we have in space with the satellites, which we have several of them that are orbiting in what they call the
geospatial
geosynchronous orbit right over the Mideast. And so they constantly watch the Mideast. It only picked up 2 heat signatures. So to me, that means there was some sort of an explosive, an incendiary device that was placed either on the exterior of that fuselage of the airplane or actually on the airplane. Probably somebody at the airport there, at the Yabba Dabba Doo Airport, or whatever they call it, put a bomb on the airplane, probably in the baggage, and it exploded. And to me, that would be, at least initially, the most probable cause of this 9268 aircraft going down.
And that would be the first things first. I wanted to talk to you about the satellite signal that they picked up, because they did pick up the infrared, as you call them, plumes, and they picked up 2 of them. And how hot does that have to be? I heard an expert on Fox News say that an internal pressure, too much internal pressure, or a structural failure couldn't cause that amount of heat, that it would not have registered the way that it did on that satellite. Is that true?
That's true. Well, you have to have the actual temperature that the SBIRS picks up the heat plumes on the Earth is classified. But it's got to be fairly hot. Now you remember we had TWA 800 in the United States that the FBI investigated that accident. That should have been the people's first clue that this TWA 800 was not just a mere aircraft accident. The FBI doesn't investigate mere aircraft accidents. That's the NTSB in conjunction with the FAA. It's the NTSB's responsibility. So they had the FBI investigating that, and they came to the conclusion that it was explosive fuel vapors, if I remember right, that combined with a short circuit in the electrical system that brought down TWA 800. I want to tell you right now, that was a complete bull-faced lie. Because the next morning, after TWA 800 went down, I had a customs pilot, friend of mine, who was off on military duty that weekend with his Coast Guard unit or his National Guard unit, his helicopter pilot on SH-60s, called me and said, Randy, I was over the water. I saw the missile rise from the boat on the water and at a 45-degree angle impact that jet, that TWA 800, and bring it down. I saw it, Randy.
If I remember correctly, that was during the Clinton administration, was it not?
Yeah, and why would the FBI lie to you? Why would the Clinton administration lie to you? Why would Barack Obama lie to you? Historical context. They can't have that type of stuff be public knowledge because they have to protect themselves and their political power and keep the people, in the zoo. Nice and calm, throw them a hunk of meat.
Right, and Putin is doing the exact same thing. The way that one of the articles that that you and I read today, and one of the things that I sent you was the phone call that Putin made to Cameron. So we've talked about the satellite imagery in the historical and political context. And we've talked about the different stories that are going on. So Prime Minister Cameron has been the most outspoken about it. It pretty much had to be a bomb at this point because his intelligence is pretty much saying the same thing that you've been telling us tonight, and evidently President Putin gave him a call to let him know that was somewhat irresponsible of him and that he should wait for the Russian-Egyptian investigation to go forward before making those sorts of claims.
Oh, I can understand why Vladimir Putin would say that. I just kind of mentioned that earlier. We were discussing it. You don't want to speculate on the cause of an accident, but we all do it. And so, but if it was a bomb, which I'm going to tell you right now, that's the most probable cause that brought down 9268 was a bomb planted on the outside exterior, more than likely in a bag in the baggage compartment back underneath the tail, and then knocked that tail off. By the way, that this is not common knowledge yet, but that tail was found on the ground a goodly distance away from the rest of the main wreckage. We go back to TWA 800. Guess what? The heat-seeking missiles seek heat. What's hot on a jet airplane is the engines, and the jet engines on that TWA 800 were found a significant distance away from the main wreckage. What does that tell you? They came off first. They were hit first by the surface-to-air missile. So he's right that we're not supposed to speculate, but I'm going to tell you, in Dr. Ray's humble opinion, the most probable cause was a bomb placed on the airplane. Now, why would an airplane taken off out of this Yavin Avenue airport there in Egypt have a bomb placed on it? Well, because Russia has been kicking the crap out of ISIS ever since they started the bombing campaign there, pretty much embarrassing your president, the Islamo communist in the White House, who's been doing nothing, basically. But they have been kicking the butt of ISIS. So this is a retaliation for that. Do you think that's true or not?
Oh, absolutely. That's what ISIS does. They retaliate. That is, we've talked about the one thing we have talked about many, many times is their culture and their religion, kind of a religion of war, a lot of people call it, I certainly have read enough of it to know that plenty of it is about war. But I also know wonderful Muslim people that I like. That doesn't mean that ISIS is about anything other than war and retaliation, because they certainly are. And that's their religion, the ISIS religion, and their caliphate is all about war and takeover and retaliation. So yes, if you hurt them, they want to hurt you back that much more.
This SBIRS infrared, the space-based system, was built by Lockheed Martin. I think Northrop, that was the main contractor. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Northrop Grumman was involved also as the payload integrator. But it works like a champ. And our satellite system, a lot of people don't realize this. Our satellite system, they're fabulous. You know what, Lou? If they wanted to train the satellite imagery on you, they could pick up your eye color. They could tell what color eyes. They're that powerful. They can see what's going on. Trust me.
Wonderful.
They're expensive. They're expensive, and you got to make sure they. But we have, like I said, we have several of these SBIRSs that are in this geosynchronous orbit, which means it's in the same orbit as the United States. They stay as the planet Earth, and they stay right over that same position, looking at the same spot on Earth all the time, because this is the type of orbit that they're doing. So they're looking at the Middle East all the time, because it's basically a hotspot for, things are going wrong in the world.
Right.
Well, you talk about them being.
That's the first place I'd ask you to put that satellite if you asked me where to put it. That's the first place I'd tell you. But so good. I'm glad. As long as they're watching them and not us, that's wonderful. I don't need for them to see my eye color. It's brown, by the way, NSA, so you don't need to look at me to tell. So
No, I've seen you. You have one brown and one blue. I've seen it.
No, it's not true. Stop it. So we have these two plumes, which you say indicate an explosion on the plane and then a larger explosion.
Impact on the ground. On the ground. This thing had just taken off. I think it was like 20 minutes in the air. It was headed back to Russia. I mean, it was full of gas, full of fuel. Probably,
so the second plume was when
A321 has like 50,000 pounds of gas on it, when it takes off full.
So it exploded in the air and then exploded again when it hit the ground.
Well, it explodes in the air. These types of man pads, I mean, this type of weapon will explode it right there, and it would blow that tail off probably right away.
Right.
And so then the airplane, they have it on radar, and the airplane started to slow down, and then it started to spin down, into the earth. And then when it breaks apart like that, the radar is still reading the IFF signal coming off that box in the cockpit, even if it's free floating. So it's still reading what's going on. But then the second impact, causes the second plume that the SBIRS from space will pick up. So if you had three heat sources of plumes, that's a missile. But you only had two, so that indicates it's more than likely a bomb that will explode in the airplane.
Okay, well, it sounds like you've been teaching all day. I'm going to take a quick break and let you rest your voice for a minute. We're going to come back and finish this conversation because I have more questions. We'll be right back.
Okie dokie.
We'll be right back.
K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@k98fm.com.
Wondering why you're up early with us on a Sunday morning making a cocktail? News lately got you drinking? Hungover from the mainstream media by Sunday? We are, and we got you covered.
We sure do. We got your hangover cure for those weekly news blues. So sit back, top off your mimosa, and add some Baileys to that coffee.
Take a match to your copy of the New York Times. Light, funny, and oh yeah, news with booze.
And a lot of laughter.
Welcome to Bloody Marys and Broadsheets.
Abolish the IRS. Take all 125,000 IRS agents and put them on our southern border.
That's us, that's right. Gotta love this American ride. Both ends of the ozone burning. Funny how the world keeps turning. Look, Mom, no hands. I love this American ride. Gotta love this American ride.
All right, we're back. So Dr. Arrington, so far we figured out that the Egyptian and the Russian government both have very good reasons to kind of suppress the truth here. And we've also found out that our satellite pickup made it look like it's definitely not a surface to ground, but most likely an explosion that took place on the plane. I don't want to say bomb, even though a lot of news sources are saying that. And there was a you can take it with a grain of salt. It's a Telegraph, but they said that British spies had actually found a bomb. But it was the Telegraph, and I would certainly never say that was true. It was one news source, and I have a standard about having more than one news source for something. But so that's what we know so far. Lots of rumors, disagreement between Western countries and Russia and Egypt. But ISIS had a really good reason to retaliate against Russia. Russia has a really good reason to try to hide that retaliation. And Egypt has a tourism industry to protect there. So what do you think we can expect from this investigation? I expect it to go on forever.
Yeah, well, they can't allow it to go on forever. Eventually, you got to come up with a reason, and you're gonna find out there was a high incendiary explosive device, and then you'll have Egypt coming to the table and coming up with enhanced techniques to take care of the security situation that this particular airport, as I understand it, was kind of lax. And we have some lax security in our own infrastructure in aviation, although the TSA guys are there in force, but they just had a situation where a whole bunch of those guys didn't pass. It was a big time failure rate. But when you talk about Russia and using their MiG-27s and Su-29s, they've been blowing the hell out of the ISIS people. Now they had been one day they had destroyed like 48 or 49 targets, and I think real targets. I'm not talking about these crap targets that Obama's having our guys go blow up maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, or come back to the carrier with their bombs still on the airplane.
Well, I was going to say that Russia's actually dropping their bombs.
Yeah. When I was in CAG 2. The Air Wing commander there was a guy named Captain John Waples. His call sign was Spine Ripper Waples, and he had a saying that in Carrier Air Wing 2, if you have hung bombs, when you come back to the ship, pick up a heading of 270 until you run out of gas. In other words, there were going to be no hung bombs in Carrier Air Wing 2. We got our bombs off and on target.
Because your motto was,
and that's what Putin's been doing with his Air Force. They've been hitting these guys hard.
Because
and basically,
he understands.
The success has been forcing us to do something. Obama's got to do something now because of this.
Well, and good for him for that, And I actually saw someone from Russia say on Twitter the other day that Americans love Putin more than Russians do. I don't know about that. I certainly don't love the man, and I would not want to live under his rule. But I think that Obama could probably take a lesson from him in this particular case, because at least he understands the value of, not the value of the plane, not the value of the bomb, not the value of the target, but the value of the man in the cockpit. And you don't put them in harm's way and give them bombs to drop and then not drop them. You don't send them into hostile territory for nothing. But we've talked about that, and that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. It makes me really angry, so we won't get hung up on that. So we've learned all these things. We know that it wasn't a surface-to-air missile or ground-to-air missile. We know that it probably wasn't a structural failure. And as some people in Russia immediately noted, that there had been structural failures or structural problems with the plane in the past. What do you think that was about? And we've already determined that, from the same things that we've heard and seen and know, that it could not have been a structural failure in the plane, in the fuselage itself, right?
This particular A321, which is just a stretched A320, it is like a 757, and it's fly-by-wire. This particular airplane involved this accident. It was about 18 years old, which is not really all that old in aviation for airplanes, that sort of thing. Was fly-by-wire, but it had a previous incident where they had a tail strike, which occurs every now and then. But they fixed it. A lot of people, are probably going to say, well, they didn't repair it properly, and that's what happened. That's why this, tail feathers came off. That's why you found it a goodly distance away from the rest of the main wreckage. I just find that, to be highly unbelievable. And again, we're going to find out that it was a high explosive incendiary device in retribution or revenge for 1,600 per month targets that are actual ISIS targets that Putin's Air Force has been destroying. And that's what's going on here.
Well, they certainly took credit for it. They came out immediately to take credit for it. But one thing that I had heard was that it might have been some new type of explosive that they were able to smuggle in. Since that time, they've said that it may have been someone, well, it's most likely, the last report that I saw that was about an hour old when we went to air, said that the most likely thing was that someone who worked at the airport put it on the plane. And my assumption is the baggage section of an airliner like that is in that rear section on the bottom of the fuselage under the tail, correct?
That's correct. Do we have a location on Clockboy? Maybe Clockboy got involved in this, and he finally made his clock. It was actually a bomb and put it on the airplane.
Yeah, I don't think he's left for Yemen yet.
It was probably C4 that was shaped charge in his some luggage that had a cell phone that was going to go off in an hour or 2 hours, wherever they had the alarm set, and the C4 went off and it blew out. If you look at some of the pictures of the wreckage, you can see that the damage shows the damage going from the internal structure of the airplane outward, and that immediately shows you that it was an explosion on the inside of the airplane.
Right. Yeah. So the guy that used to have the NTSB named Corky is somebody that we worked with in my old position a lot, and helped to develop a lot of our responses for aviation disasters, and he was really critical to what we did, and he would always talk about pitting as well is another sign of a bomb. I haven't heard anybody say anything about any pitting on the metal, but they say that that's also a very good sign of that there was actually a bomb on the plane when you have pitting in the metal of
you'll find shrapnel in the dead bodies too. Mm-hmm. When they do the postmortems on the dead bodies, there'll be lots of that actually have shrapnel in their bodies, and that is another sign of
in
explosion.
The victims.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that we definitely can't lose sight of, I don't think, is that the people that died, so let's say that this was a terrorist attack and it was ISIS, those people are victims. They're not, it wasn't an accident.
Exactly.
And they're actually victims of a terrorist attack, and that gets lost a lot. And I think that, so we're gonna have to wrap up the show here in just a minute, but I want to say definitely before we get off the air that it's sad to me that gets lost in this political argument and this political fight between. Well, was it a bomb or wasn't it a bomb? Or, Putin calling Cameron, and, these are his people, and he should care about, he should be a little bit more sensitive. That's why we have an Aviation Act, an Aviation Victims Act in the U.S. now, and it was after 800. You talked about Flight 800. It was after that, or no, it was the American crash before that. But it was because of, just that kind of thing, the investigations crawling and people not wanting to tell the truth, and the victims and their families really being distraught by the whole process of the investigation. And so we do it very differently in this country now than probably any other country because of that.
Well, you just showed that you care about human beings, and a lot of politicians want you to think they care about human beings when, in essence, they don't. All they care about is their political power, which would make Machiavelli proud. And that's a problem with politicians. I'm just so happy that tonight, on For Whom the Bell Tolls, you didn't force me to give any kind of opinion on Donald Trump, which would, of course, alienate me and Miss Stacy. I'm thankful for that. Really.
Yeah, and I told you I was going to get that out of the way before you called in for that very reason. So that to not force you to talk about it.
Well, I enjoy good intellectual humor. I just wish I could find a couple people that would display that so I could laugh.
You're funny. They did like your Yabba Dabba Doo Airport in the chat room. That was a big hit. So I want to thank all of you guys in the chat and everybody out there listening for joining us tonight. We appreciate it so very much. And I'll be here next week. I don't know who will be with me. I think we might have a Bat by popular demand next week with me and Hammy. That was a really good show that a lot of people didn't get to hear. So we might be playing that one again for you guys next week. But we'll definitely be back. And thanks so much for joining us here on For Whom the Bell Tolls. And Dr. Arrington, thanks for helping us understand some of the more complex issues with the satellites. And we didn't get to the rumors about the Israeli exercises that were running at the time, but they were pretty much debunked rumors, so we probably didn't need to go there anyway. You guys all
They're all lies. They're all lies.
Yeah, they were. They were all lies. So you guys have a wonderful evening, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.
Thank you.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. Then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-513-6154. That's 1-800-513-6154. Again, 1-800-513-6154. Call now.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for